Folks, this is Bob with BBD. Welcome to the week that was in foreign politics, my once a week recap. Interesting article by Harsh Pant. He says there is change in the US's attitude to South Asia. India should leverage the moment. A lot of the debate post-Afghanistan has been about possibility of Washington trying to find a new modus vivendi with Islamabad, once again potentially marginalizing Indian sensitivities. But that didn't happen with Sherman's visit. One, she reiterated the US won't go back to India-Pakistan hyphenation. Second, two, it was clear policymakers in Washington and New Delhi are working together to manage the externalities emanating from a Talibanized Afghanistan. Three, while dehyphenating India and Pakistan, Sherman made it a point to remark on the real story of our times, the rise of China and India and its profound implications for the global order. India's incredible rise over the last decades has been enabled by the rules-based international order. So too has the People's Republic of China's, but the two countries have taken very different paths, Sherman suggested. In context of Beijing trying to alter the status quo in its favor through bullying and coercing weaker states, the importance of the US-India partnership becomes even more salient, right? That's the important part. And what does Frank Islam write about? AUKUS won't affect the US-India relationship, but it will affect Quad, but in a positive way. He says, one, will it affect India-US relations? No, it won't. The trajectory of the India-US relationship is not going to change. Bilateral ties have many dimensions, regional security being just one of them. He says, second, the AUKUS impact Quad, yes, it will. Quad will remain a non-military group in which the four member nations will cooperate on a number of key regional and global issues. The breadth of Quad's agenda at the Leaders Summit on September 24 gives a sense of the ambitious role the four nations envision for the organizations. There will be more than enough for the Quad to do as this budding alliance moves forward. AUKUS takes the security and military issue off the Quad table. This is good thing because India did not want such an arrangement with the US or for the matter with any country. And the US did not want such an arrangement either to encourage India. So, domestic policies, what's happening in Afghanistan, etc., how that's playing into foreign policies right here. Killing spree continues in J&K. Two laborers from Bihar shot dead, one injured. Okay, so this is happening in J&K, right? What does Ajay Sahni write? Ajay Sahni says, facts not hysteria, most must inform J&K terror analysis. No data to show terrorism fatalities sharply up or that Taliban is making a difference. It's important to remember, right? Of course, the targeted killings were intended to terrorize the minority communities in the valley and will have done so and may have provoked some Kashmiri Pandits to flee the valley at least temporarily. But to compare this to the exodus of the early 90s reflects ignorance of and contempt for the sheer magnitude of the earlier tragedy. What explains the current inflammatory and contrafactual discourse on terrorist escalation in J&K? It would be easy to dismiss it as ignorance and hysteria, but the reality is that this is an intentional and polarizing discourse and that benefits extremists both on the Islamist and Hindutva side. On one hand, to exaggerate capacities, on the other, to exaggerate threat. Both these ideological groupings have an abiding interest in pitting community against community, persistently undermining national interest. And that's exactly what's happening because of the upcoming UP election. And look at what's happening. And now you don't have a leg to stand on because you've got Hindus getting killed in J&K, you're lynching Muslims all across India, you're going after interfaith marriages with a vengeance, you call these Bangladeshis all kinds of weird names, and then you have another temple vandalized and fresh unrest in Bangladesh. A minority group announces country-wide hunger strike to protest attack, and this is how it plays into domestic politics. Hypocritic. TMC silent on Bangladesh attack, says BJP Neta. Now, these BJP Netas should be whacked left, right and center. Bangladesh temples vandalized during Durga Puja. 4 killed, 43 held for the violence. 2 killed in fresh communal violence in Bangladesh. 90 suspects arrested. And then there's pressure. PM Modi called on to raise matter with Hasina, seeks strong action against the guilty. But what hypocrisy. What can poor Prime Minister tell Hasina when he and his Home Minister has called these guys all kinds of names, folks? Later. Back, folks. So things around in our periphery, in our neighborhood are obviously up for grabs, as you see here. Shringla took a trip, takes up Tamil cause with Lankan president. Then it says China investment won't undermine India's security, says Lanka. This is the new Sri Lankan High Commissioner telling Doval while presenting his credentials. And then what do you have there? High-level India visit, bridge trust deficit, says Sri Lankan envoy. Did it? I don't know. But here, Sri Lanka's got to do more than bridge deficit, right? Trust deficit. Lanka seeks 500 million loan from India for buying fuel, right? They're out of money. Why don't they go to China? Ask the Paksa that. Because he's got his short and curly in their hand. Short and curly, my friend, short and curly. It's going to hurt him bad. This is the other part that we're going to really be worried about. India takes note as China-Bhutan Inc. border talks MOU. India cautious as Bhutan-China sign pact. But this is the thing that actually we got to keep looking at. Right? Bhutan yet to accept China's 1996 package deal of Doklam. So Doklam is very critical. What do we do if they include Doklam? We got to have to worry. Tri-junction not in boundary pact. Bhutan signed with China. So this is still giving us some space, but we've got to be really careful because the Chinese are moving in there and we really can't wipe this under the carpet. So the world's realize, after they got their teeth kicked in, that Taliban's not changing, Pakistan not changing, Taliban is back to their bad old days. Also, they figured out that Taliban is still while in control, not fully in control because ISIK is just out there. After those 2 bomb blasts. So what do we have here? US says Taliban will be judged on actions. UN chief says regime broke its promises. They absolutely did. Jaishankar on 3-nation tour to safeguard Indian Afghan interests. He went to Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan and Armenia, India's key partners in Central Asia, where Armenia came in. That's kind of interesting. What did Modi have to say? India to seek Taliban accountability based on UNSC Resolution 2593. This is important because I think Pakistan lost the plot. They thought that they would be able to bring in Afghanistan back into the fold earlier, get it funded, siphon some of the money for the generals themselves. It didn't happen. And the longer the wait, time is against them. Earlier, the time was for them, but the United States was that. Now the time is against them because hunger, poverty, COVID rampaging. US Taliban talks in Doha candid and professional, but that's a way of saying they went nowhere. Blast at Shia mosque in Afghanistan kills 47, and now you've had 2 of these blasts, right? And what does Vivek Katju writes? He says Taliban, 2 months on India's options in Kabul. India took the correct decision in withdrawing from its embassy in August, but it's now time to send a small team back to Kabul. This would not imply recognition. Indeed, no country has done so, but that has not prevented them from engaging the Taliban. Of course, full guarantees will have to be taken, invoking Pashtunwali about the security of Indian personnel placed in Kabul. As part of the process of opening up, the concerns of the Afghan people, including their need to visit India, has to be focused on. Absolutely critical for India. The people of Afghanistan understand and trust India, right? And this is a big move for India. India moves to host meet next month, and the United States has also been called. Pakistan, NSA among invitees for India's own conference on Afghanistan. Invitations sent to Russia, Iran, China, Tajikistan. An important move, folks. While all this is happening, we've forgotten Myanmar. That trouble continues for us because refugees are coming into Mizoram. There's trouble there, but we got to get the West aligned on this policy in Myanmar. UN says it fears imminent attack in Myanmar after army build-up. And in Mauritius, that's another key player for India and the Indo-Pacific strategy. Mauritius may be out of FATF grey list this month, and India should do whatever it can to ensure that happens. But it has to plug all the loopholes of bad money coming into India from them. Cheers. Nepal, not so much in news ever since the new government was formed. Nepal PM gives full shape to Council of Ministers, but we got to be careful and watchful. Pakistan, on the other hand, is on a slippery slope. Pakistan journal killed in bomb attack in Balochistan. Pakistan airline suspends Afghanistan ops citing Taliban interference. It will return to haunt you. India attacks Pakistan over terror. But this is what's become the joke of the town. Pakistan PM military standoff on new ISI chief drags on, halts routine posting, and this is the same ISI chief who apparently did the Kabul deal. So now the question is, was the PM in the loop? Impasse between PM and Pakistan Army over ISI chief continues. Amid row with army over new ISI chief, Pakistan government says process is on. Imran admin and military also said to defer on dealing with TTP. India, on the other hand, this is the important part. India and Pakistan need to combat Afghan threat with a cool-headed approach. Okay, it is time that both India and Pakistan should realize the threat of AQ and IS from Afghanistan is far severe than what both countries face now, and Pakistan especially. And what Pakistan's happened is, having lost the plot with Taliban, have finally the Gordian knot with the United States seems to be unraveling. Dealing the Pak 221.0, says Seema Sirohi. Sentiment on Capitol Hill, crucial for any serious reckoning, ranges from strongly negative to highly negative. US lawmakers called Pakistan duplicitous and unworthy of its status as a non-NATO ally. The overall message: no money, no favors, and no more coddling. Both Republicans and Democrats. While in India, she said clearly, we don't see ourselves building a broad relationship with Pakistan, and there was no chance of hyphenation. Back in Washington, it's clear that no Republican or Democrat is willing to argue Pakistan's case. Pakistani embeds not only provided training and tactical support, but they also fought alongside the Taliban and died. Reports of bodies being taken back to villages within 2 days through Spin Boldak and Torkhum borders crossings and rousing funerals being held in Pakistan are common. Every major Taliban unit had Pakistani embeds and map readers to direct the fighters. According to Javed Ahmed, a former Afghan ambassador, coordination among various Taliban factions was impeccable. Do we have any evidence, intelligence or otherwise, of Pakistani troops on the ground, intelligence officers, air support, or any troop assisting the Taliban or command and control assisting the Taliban offensive? Walsh asked General Kenneth McKenzie at a recent hearing. When the general said he would prefer to answer behind closed doors, Walsh said, I will take the as a yes. McKenzie didn't contradict Walsh because enough intercepts have been captured and shared. This is the important part. This, of course, is hugely embarrassing for Pakistan. Desperation, still no call from Biden to Imran Khan has caused serious problems. All this speaks to Pakistan's loss of credibility and a narrative spinning out of control. So much so that the foreign minister, not known for restraint, has taken to upbraiding his beleaguered ambassador for his inability to facilitate diplomatic communication with Washington via letters. Current US policy: ignore Pakistan, let it simmer on low, but keep minimal contact for an eventuality. In other words, they have nuclear weapons. So Pakistan has finally created an issue of humility of the United States and the army. I don't think they're going to be forgiven for that. Cheers. This is the other relationship that's developing, that's going to somewhat stabilize what's happening in Jammu and Kashmir and Afghanistan. There's too much inter-Muslim, inter-religious warfare going on in the Middle East, whether it's Iran, Oman, Saudi Arabia. So one block is Iran, Oman, Turkey. The other is obviously UAE and Saudi Arabia. India seems to be doing the right things here, right? Jaishankar heads to Israel to engage with new leadership. Says India, US, Israel and UAE coming together to form a second Quad ? Tel Aviv sees bigger West Asia role for India. He says Israel wants India, with its transformed relationship with the Arab world, to play a greater role in the West Asia's emerging strategic landscape, with a suggestion that could be seen as a second Quad in the making, as Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar heads towards Tel Aviv. Right? This is important, especially after the Abrahamic Accord. In Israel, Jaishankar lays wreath at cemetery for India soldiers, and India also celebrates the Haifa Day. Jaishankar invites Israel business to invest in India. And what's the great stuff that's happening is with the United States. New Hyderabad facility to help boost Quad nations' vaccine supply. And here, $1 billion is going to be put in by US International Development Finance Corporation for the development, right? Opportunities galore in India. FM to investors. This is again being said in the United States. India working with Indo-Pac states for recognition of vax certificates. FM, Kheri violence condemnable but is not an isolated case. This is how domestic policies interfere with international policies. What's happening? What are India, US confer curbing terror funds, finance crime. India, US for maintaining policies to aid strong, inclusive recovery. India and US to enhance ties on climate and finance. Malabar drill may expand in future. US Navy chief on his visit to India. Boosting trade, Indo-Pacific security to top agenda, says the United States. FM meets global companies, brass in US hard steps taken to woo investors. Pine Lab may file for nearly $1 billion NASDAQ IPO by October end. Expand IOR cooperation, says US as Malabar starts. RIL boosts solar business with 9,000 crore deal, right? Buoyed by government package via ICE fund infusion of rupees 20,000 crores. All in all, folks, if you look at what I've run through there, is headed to the US. Why? Because technology, money, everything is there. But also what's happening is the UK. Modi and Johnson to launch global solar power grid. Another important thing. HMS Queen Elizabeth leads UK naval fleet into Bay of Bengal. So this whole thing is put together as C. Raja Mohan writes, European booster shot. Europe promises to enhance India's quest for a multipolar world, rebalance Indo-Pacific. So not only Europe, also the United Kingdom, everybody in play, foreign policy, all there and happening. Jai Hind.